Senate has now taken up for the third week the tort reform bill, trying to make changes in insurance, what needs to be done with liquor liability. The House did their version of it a while back. They did a singular bill that dealt with liquor liability issues. What you're seeing right now when it comes to what happens with your bars and your restaurants, your convenience stores, and some of them are remaining in business and some of them are not. But there are larger issues that are in play here, and that's where we bring in the senator from York County. Let's not downgrade. They are a Republican senator and the chairman of the subcommittee that was on the tort reform bill S-244, Michael Johnson out of York County. It's really great to have you here.
Thanks, Dave.
We have been talking about tort reform and insurance and liability issues for weeks on this show. You've been talking about it for months. A lot of what's gone on with what needs to be done for insurance reform has really been part of your responsibility as a subcommittee chair, and actually goes back to the last session as well. Tell us a little bit of the history of how in the world did we get to where we are now?
Sure. So if you think back to 2024, January of 24, I was not the subcommittee chair. I was assigned to the subcommittee, and we were studying tort reform, looking at dram shop, looking at several different ideas. I then eventually kind of got into a working group that tried to meet for 18, 25 odd hours, trying to hammer out a final deal, and then that whole process fell apart last year. And at the last second,
right there at the end of session,
right there at the end of session,
which is not an unusual thing,
yeah.
Right?
So it falls apart. Fast forward, January of this year, I become the chair of the subcommittee. We hold 5-6 hearings, all at least minimum 3-4 hours long, some going even longer.
And some of them sometimes rather contentious.
Well,
at times.
What we tried to do, I did something different than a lot of people have done, is I would put a plaintiff expert and a defense expert and make them stand side by side, or sit side by side, depending on what room we were in,
right,
and both testify at the same time. And what we found is they tended to complement each other more because they know each other.
Right.
They didn't say outlandish things. They didn't make accusations, and they would argue, but it was in a way that you could follow and understand, because you would say something and I would go, that's not necessarily right, and you would have to go, well, maybe you're right. All right, this is right, but that, it really, I thought, created a process where everyone could understand what the problems were. And then now here we are, 3 weeks onto the floor, and we're in the middle of the debate.
So you had how many members on that subcommittee? 7?
7.
So 7 out of the 46 members of the Senate have really heard everything that goes into this.
Yes.
That's a difficult process to then get that out to the rest of the body for them to fully understand, or?
Oh, it's immensely difficult, right? So you take that 7, it then goes to the full committee. The full committee, which is half of the Senate, attempts to talk about it. But even there, I've spent 15 hours, you get an hour and a half on it.
Right.
And so it is an extremely difficult situation. I can't imagine not being an attorney trying to get through some of this. I mean, the statute of repose was something I'd forgotten about in law school, and now I'm back trying to learn.
We're not telling your professor on that one.
Yeah, so this has been a process, and so I think part of it's education. Part of it is, what can we do to fix the problem? How do we address that? And how do we make sure that the pendulum doesn't swing so far that we forget the innocent, injured person who might have been killed by a drunk driver or injured by someone like that?
So we talked about this on the show on Sunday. Let's dig into this a little bit deeper. There's really kind of, as we understand, there's 3 different groups that are here. You've got the insurance companies, you've got lawyers, and you've got people who are injured.
Certainly.
And those 3, there's a balance that exists between those 3 somewhere. But in the state right now, it seems to be out of balance. What's the out of balance part of that?
Well, and I'll tell you this. So you have this kind of unholy trinity, so to speak. But in the middle of that is the consumer, right? It's the average person paying premiums and rates and trying to make sure that they can operate their business and do all those things. So what's out of balance? The insurance companies will tell you that joint and several is out of business, out of balance. And joint and several is simply that you are 51% at fault or more as a defendant, and there's two defendants, and one's 51 and one's 49. Well, the guy who's 51 may have to pick up the entire tab depending on how the insurance it is.
Okay.
I settle with a defendant. That defendant never shows up on a verdict form, so you get blamed for the entire thing. On Dram Shop, it's the fact that bars and restaurants literally, you go to 3 bars, the first bar can get sued despite the fact you had 1 beer there and 7 tequila shots at the third bar. Somehow that first bar still is negligent when they're not. We're trying to clean some of that up, even this playing field a little bit, while not forgetting, that guy who had 7 tequila shots, he's a criminal because he went on the street, drove drunk, and killed somebody or seriously injured someone. So you have to balance this. It just can't be an all or nothing proposition, and that's what I've really tried to do.
So when we look at this, we recognize the fact that you may have a lot of insurance companies in South Carolina, but are they all writing policies that really address the issues that need to be done, or are we really limited on choice right now?
We're really limited on choice. So 44, 47 odd companies that say, oh, we write insurance for Dram Shop, so to speak. What we found, there's probably 3, maybe 4 that will actually do it, and then some of them will only do it under certain circumstances. Oh, you got to sell food over 50%. In a higher end restaurant where you might buy a $150 bottle of wine, your whole meal may be $200, but your bill is $150, right?
Right.
So how do you? It's very nuanced. It's very complicated. There are no promises. The director of the Department of Insurance said, if you do these things, I cannot tell you that they're going to have the impact that you want.
Right.
But our goal is to, as I like to say, and I constantly say this, rebalance the scales of justice.
Right.
And try to make this a little more even.
So you've had to do you've heard a lot of testimony from a lot of different folks about this. You're now on the floor. You've got a lot of outside forces that are also trying to talk in on this issue. Is that really playing an impact on the decision making and the discussions that are going on in there?
Last night, or the other night when I was on the floor, I made the comment that the lobby, the outside world has spoken. It is now time for the Senate to make law. That is our job. It is to take in all of this information and then we make laws. And I think that we've taken in the information, everyone knows where they're at, and the only question is, how do you get to 24 votes to pass a bill and 26 votes to get cloture, which stops debate on a bill?
So let's explain this little portion of it real quick. For those of you who understand inside baseball, there are certain rules that are in the Senate. In order for you to be able to end debate, you have to have a certain number of people who agree to end debate. That's called cloture, or basically, we're going to sit you down now. You've done the time of talking. We're now going to agree to come to a point of voting on that. You've got 46 members of the Senate. You only have to have 24 to pass a bill, but you got to have 26.
26 for cloture.
To bring it to a vote. But that's a process of whittling away.
Oh, so you can have 24 say, we're all in for this. But a vote of 24 to 22 is troubling because you're not there. And so you have a cloture vote, you win or lose. If you win, that's going to become the bill. If you lose, you start negotiating. What do I have to take out of here? What do I have to add to get 2 more votes? And then maybe you have another vote. And then now you have 25, and then you take 2 or 3 more votes, and you're still at 25. And eventually the goal is to get some consensus, right? Because this is all about consensus.
Right.
Get enough people who say, I believe this is the right package. And in something as large as this, and this is a large bill, it does so much more than just a Dram Shop, liquor liability. It touches joint and several, statute of repose, venue. It goes on and on, all the things this bill could do. You've got to get a whole lot of people who are like, I'm good with this, but I'm not good with that. And so you've got to get them all on board, or at least 26 of them on board, and then you go from there.
Having a strong Republican majority, though, does not guarantee that you're going to have something moving through the Senate in any way, shape, or form because there's so many different people and so many different approaches.
I don't think tort reform in and of itself is a conservative Republican issue. I know Democrats who are sold on this idea. I know Republicans who are not sold on this idea, especially aspects of this. I think we would pass a dram shop bill tomorrow. I think passing all of the other parts, and I will say this, passing dram shop liquor liability alone does not fix our problem in South Carolina. This is a multifaceted problem that needs a larger approach, but that larger approach makes it very difficult to happen.
So I'm going to play a little bit of inside politics of the two different chambers real quick, because there's the House and this is the Senate that we're talking about. And the Senate tends to be the deliberative body. They're the ones who sit there and it used to be where all the good bills go to die. I don't necessarily think that that's the case anymore. But let's ask this question, though, Senator. When you take a look at what the House did with their liquor liability law, it moved something, and it at least garnered some attention of some members inside your body. Are y'all looking at what the House has done as anything to be put into this bill, or was it already there to begin with?
So I think a lot of what the House did is incorporated into our dram shop bill, that section. The House was able to pass a bill in a day. The Senate has been on this.
As it tends to be for the House to be able to
That's
do.
Right. We've now debated for 3 weeks. Tuesday, I stood in the well for 5 hours. Tuesday, 2 weeks ago, I stood in the well for 4 hours just talking about this issue. We are slow, we are methodical, but the goal is to make the best law that we can. There is nothing wrong per se with the House bill. What we'd like to do, though, it has certain parts that I'm like, I'm not sure I agree with or I like. I'm sure they will say the same when our bill goes to them, and they are wise to do so. But I think we will send them the type of bill that will not make everyone happy, but will move the ball to make it, and the ball make it closer to a fair system where insurers will return to our state. They will write insurance in our state. Premiums can go down, and injured people can still be protected. This can be done.
There's that balance then with what you were talking about. With the consumer there in the middle, there is a balance point that you're trying to strike.
A happy medium.
A happy medium somewhere. So we've got the bill's going to be coming back up next week. Do you feel confident that you're going to get something through the Senate before the week comes to a close?
I feel confident that the Senate's going to talk about this for the next, for 3 days next week. No, look, I believe we'll find that sweet spot. Where that is, I can't, as of today, I don't have the crystal ball out. I haven't started thinking.
We lost it, so it was somewhere down the
If I could tell you where it was, we'd be done early Tuesday. I think we're gonna have to take some votes. We have to see where the body is. Is the body here? Is the body in the middle? Is it there? Where are we at on the spectrum? And have the votes, and then we start whittling away. Like I said earlier,
Right.
You're not trading, but what you're saying is, hey, if I compromise on this, does that get you to support this bill? And again, this is a large bill, has a lot of facets. So we got to get, you can give a little here, and all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, I don't have any problems anymore. This bill is good for me.
Right. That is part of the ongoing process and part of what the Senate does every single time that you end up taking up bills like this, because this is important information. And one of the reasons why we have this segment right here on the extended version of Connect to the Capitol, because we want to make sure that you are informed on the things that are going on. We look forward to talking with you next time.